Welcome, everyone, to the Human Animal Spiritual Network. And we are here today. I'm Barbara Shore, veterinarian and intuitive interspecies communicator or animal communicator. And we are here to discuss a topic called, what is it called? Balancing the head and heart to make wise decisions. So here we go. You want to start, Christina?
Absolutely. So, the key to leading a satisfied, relatively stress-free life, regardless of what we do in our lives, um, really often is a balancing act that we have to do of being present and listening to what our heart says, what our head says. If it's just the heart, we may be missing some pieces. And another piece of this is in the listening. Often, when we pay attention to the animals that are around us and the people and the plants and the air, when we listen to what they have to say, then it's really triples, quadruples our power, our what we're thinking, our decision making, and makes it a lot easier. Very often for me, one of my challenges in life, I work virtually and people call me for support with what can they do next for their animals. And I work with the environment and lead courses. So I do a lot of paperwork. And when I need to sit down and get some work done, whether it's making a recording or writing something or editing something or doing my checkbook, I often default to my mind and or someplace that I may not even know. And I end up playing computer games or watching TV or reading a novel instead of being connected. A friend of mine instead is on the phone or on the computer doing things, busy and not getting her when she's stuck in her head. So for me, if I can listen and take a breath, several breaths or more, not just one, and really listen, I hear voices. I'm not sure where they come from, but they usually are fairly accurate. So today I was just doing great this morning, did all sorts of things I should do with meditating and exercise and eating. And then I sort of was getting a little not functioning quite as well. And I was about ready to start or started doing some other things, computer game. And I stopped and I took 3 breaths and I clearly heard take a nap. And so instead of anything else, I laid down and took a nap. And when I got up, I was ready to move. When I'm gardening, I listen to what the plants say. Where do they want to be? Do they want more water? And my head comes into it, of course, and sometimes we have a little flurfur. Well, it feels wet to me. Do we really need more water? And when I can listen to the animals that I'm working with, they frequently remind me that there's no one expert and that I don't have to hold myself out as the expert. I can say, here's some recommendations. Here's the way I think we might want to go. And then all of us, the family, the animals, think about, well, what would be the best approach? What should we be doing next? And it relieves a lot of the stress to be able to really listen at all levels. So I recommend breathing. Either that or we wouldn't be here. So breathe and listen and observe. Those are my keys to having happiness and joy and a little bit less stress.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina. My name is Angela. I am a veterinarian, and I thought about the balance between the heart and the mind a lot. And it's actually something that I work with and I'm in the process of learning more about. So, and I agree with Christina in that listening is key. I always find that there's a quiet voice and then there's the more loud voice. The quiet voice, you have to be still to hear. And that is usually the voice for me that comes from the heart. But there isn't a simple way of gathering your heart's information other than being quiet and still, which, as Christina alluded to, you have to actually make effort towards in our busy society. One other way I know it's coming from the heart versus the mind, it's more quiet and it's also positive or very direct, but never negative. And then I can discern, okay, this is coming from my heart. If it's coming from my mind, sometimes it's negative towards myself. And if you're quiet enough, you can isolate those little negative thoughts and think, oh, that actually is not serving me at all. The way that I've found that I can discern those voices, though, is through meditation. With regular meditation and quieting the mind, you start to look at those little thoughts as little clouds that go by. I try to think of them positively, isolate them, and identify that that's a thought. Um, so you become the observer. I found that the best access to the heart and discernment between the heart and mind is observation. Um, so I hope this helps and encourages you all to hear from the heart because there's a lot of wisdom in the heart that's ready to be heard. Thank you.
That was beautiful. I have a few words to say. My name is Linda Bender, also a veterinarian animal advocate, and very much a advocate for having the heart and the spirit be primary in our lives. And I so agree what has been spoken just a few minutes ago, and the balance between the head and the heart. I have a practice that I use. I've done it so much it just comes naturally, but that monkey mind, I call it the monkey mind that just never shuts up. And when I catch myself, I just say, stop, stop. And then I flip whatever it is, because if I'm at the point where I notice that it's negative and I don't need it in my life, and I say stop, I flip to a positive thought, something that will serve me. And I'd like to just give an example of when my cat Whimsy was dying, and between the head and the heart, an extreme example for me, it taught me such a deep lesson in life, was my adoration and love for my 20-year-old cat. I couldn't let go. And so my veterinarian hat was refusing to think anything other than how am I going to keep my beloved companion alive? We can do this. We can do this. We can do this. And I just went into autopilot, and I realized my husband came in the room one day quietly. I was doing subcutaneous fluids long after I probably should have stopped, but the kidneys were failing, et cetera, et cetera. My husband said, maybe it's time to stop. And it hit me like a ton of bricks at that moment. And it's as if that was the big stop. Come to your senses and flip into your heart. What is best in this situation? And then I was able to go deeply into where I get wisdom. And instead of the scales of, heart down here, the mind completely here, I thought I was in my heart, but I wasn't. I was completely in my head, my vet hat. How do I get back here now with my heart leading the way? And it was one of the most difficult and painful decisions I ever had to make, was to follow that heart decision to say, enough is enough. And it's tough. It's very tough at times. And I think I'll just end by saying that when we use this balance and we exercise those muscles with smaller things, it becomes much easier to regulate ourselves in the really difficult times. So anyway, thank you.
And I am Jeff Feynman. I'm a veterinarian and homeopath who doesn't have a lot to say on this subject because I've spent the majority of my life living as an analytic veterinarian, purely out of my head. But then I had a dog who died tragically and then sent me this sweet puppy that we just adopted, and they live purely out of their heart. And what I learned from first from Archie and now from Maya is that wisdom, as Linda and Angela and Christina said, wisdom really comes by balancing those two. So for most of my life, I had a lot of information, a lot of analysis, a lot of vet stuff about what to do, and the animals and the wisdom that they brought via the heart energy have allowed me to balance my head and my heart because neither one is right and neither one is wrong. But the balance really is key to, as Christina said, a happy, healthy, and stress-free life because stress is that difference between where you should be and where you are, and where we should be is at a good balance, and where we are is often where I lived in anxiety and depression throughout most of my life was purely in my heart and in my head, and now I see that the balance is allowing, life to unfold. So if I can do it, you can do it. Said me.
Thank you, everyone. This is a really pertinent topic, I think, for our time. My name is Donna Lozito, and I am an animal communicator and a classical homeopath. And I, recently, for the past many years, I've been working, it's no secret, I've been working out a lot of deep trauma. And I believe, or what I've come to see is that during the traumatizing times, the heart shuts. And when the heart shuts and closes, the mind automatically takes over. And so I was working with this person that's been helping me with all of, releasing a lot of this dark energy. And what happened to come up was the heart that was closed, and then of course we locate the certain time in my life when it actually shut down and has not really been functioning in alignment with your head. So there was a thing for me that I really, it's not either or, they work in tandem. And how do you do that? And the information, and what came from the heart was that the information comes from the heart and gets filtered through the brain and gets spoken out, through the filter of the head. And like that was a new concept because I thought all this time, I was, the work that I'm doing, but then I realized that during those traumatic years, yes, my heart shut. And yes, the terror shut it down. And so it's been, an interesting journey to try to function in that presence of that intuition. I mean, the intuition was there, but the heart was closed. And what a difference to have that realization that now I can be cognizant of this relationship between head and heart and use both of them. I mean, we have both. We are really, it was intended for us to use both. And so that's just been like a new concept for me because, when I work with animals, I don't use my head a whole lot. It's really, so I'm thinking all of this time that, yeah, it's on my, but actually it wasn't. It was a closed heart that was waiting for me to recognize how close it was in an effort to open it. So I'm not sure if that makes sense. It's just been my journey in that I think that we're moving into a time where the heart actually even, I mean, there was a time when the heart had no say at all. It wasn't even a topic of discussion. It was, the science, the brain, the studies that, and where was there mention of a heart? Certainly when I was being raised, it wasn't something that was discussed. And so, that I could go on, but I think what I'm trying to say is that the alignment of both is something that really, is really it's a nice new way for me to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. That was great. Everybody's been wonderful, and boy, so much wisdom here. So what I'd like to say is I'm a veterinarian, and going through vet school was not easy, and all the years of education, and I did a residency, and I was totally in my head. And years later, I realized that I had stuffed my emotions for all those years and kept them hidden. And I was in some tough situations, as we all have been. And instead of allowing myself to truly feel what was going on, I had to keep a strong, brave face. And that worked for a while, but what I've come to realize is that over time it does some damage emotionally and physically when you're not able to acknowledge your emotions fully. So I'm not saying it's good to fall apart in the middle of a tough situation, but to acknowledge what you're feeling and let that be your truth and move from there and find a way to integrate it, incorporate it, and move through it. And the other thing I'd like to say is this is similar to what Linda was talking about. I had a dog some years ago. He was a Rottweiler named Cody, and I adored this dog. And he was older, and I found out he had a tumor on his mouth, and it was growing, and it was giving him some problems. And but he was still able to move about. He was getting a little rusty in the hind legs and all that. But we went to an oncologist, and I was in the oncologist's office when she was telling me that he could have surgery and this and that, and he had some heart murmur issues, and it would be a big deal. And at the time, I was planning to go to Montana for a few months. I'd already had it set up, and I was going to take Cody with me. But I was more than willing to stay where I was in Colorado and have the surgery and take care of Cody because I loved him. And I was in the oncologist's office. And this doesn't hardly ever happen to me, but I was in the office and I said, Cody, what do you want to do? And he said, let's go. So we did. I listened to him, I listened to my heart, and we went to Montana and had 3 fabulous months, and he died there, a really peaceful death after just a phenomenal time for him. So I've learned to listen to those voices and those feelings that come up, sometimes unexpected. But it's been a huge gift for me to be able to listen to my heart, listen to my soul. And as many people have said here, meditation is a good way to get quiet. For me, I'm not the best meditator in the world. I can do it, but not for hours and hours like some people I know. My way is through writing. And most mornings, I write it out. If I'm feeling something and I need help, I call in my soul, I call in my inner guidance, and I get some phenomenal stuff. And I think it was Angela who said, look for the positive because that's more likely to be the soul speaking. And that's what I've found. When there's a lot of criticism and judgment and anger and all that stuff, pay attention and see where it's really coming from. So thank you. Thank you. I think we've all spoken who want to speak. And thank you for listening. I hope you find this helpful and sending you all lots of love.